Well, listen, let's get a little chronology going here. You started like in the 30s. Jimmy, you said you were about 12 when it started, maybe?
When the, no,
I think he was talking about when he was in the Cub Scouts.
I was, I think I was about 16 when the Webloes started.
Were you that old?
Yeah, because we went through the Boy Scouts.
Okay.
We went into Boy Scouts at 12.
12, okay.
And through the Boy Scouts.
Okay.
And the Webloes, and they were that was after the Boy Scouts
Okay.
that the Webloes.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
about
So I had to be about 16 years old.
Okay, all right. And then
What happened was when the older fellows that were in the Phi Sigma went into service, so that must have been around 41, 42, that they went into service and it took it over from them
okay.
in the Webloes.
Yeah.
So we're saying about
I'd say about 40.
Between 40 and 41 the club started, if you will. Okay.
Edison Mitchell wanted to form a fraternity. And the old Webloes then, I remember him coming to us some kind of way and asking us would we be the Webloes because they were going to move up and become the Phi Sigma. And right away we said yes. And that was the beginning of this group of Webloes. But I remember Edison Mitchell was the main spokesman for the Phi Sigma at that time.
Better known as Ming the Merciless.
Right.
Because he was tough. He was tough on whenever you had any kind of initiation or
He'd be
transition. He was like when they were kind of uncontrollable kid, they called Ming the Merciless, and everybody was afraid to death of him. He was a bad
good
guy.
heart. Though.
Oh, he was a beautiful guy. He really was a beautiful guy. Very intelligent, very smart, but he just liked to beat up on folk.
You got respect.
Oh, he wasn't around the Dangerfield, I can tell you that.
So you started at the chapel, and then you said you moved into each other's homes.
Yeah, I started going to each other's home for meetings.
Okay, now tell me about the meetings.
The mothers would fix a nice meal, and well, our meetings were pretty businesslike because we were sort of age then, and we started putting on these programs. And
well, when you say of age, give me an age.
Oh, I would say 16, 17.
Okay.
What started us to meeting at the homes, though, was the fact that when we gave our first prom at Kleinhand's Music Hall, which was the first time that blacks had ever rented Kleinhand's Music Hall to give a dance, when we gave that, we were more or less forced out of the chapel because we couldn't give outside affairs at that time because we were sponsored by the United Way or whatever it was sponsoring the chapel wouldn't allow us to have outside affairs.
Okay.
So that's when we started having to meet at different members' homes.
Okay. Tell me about your meetings at each other's homes. You said the moms would prepare, and I think the last time we talked a little bit about some of the homes that you especially liked to go to.
The Bell residence.
Bell's residence.
The Bell residence.
Tell me why. What was going on there?
Well,
Mother Bell usually fixed a nice meal. Of course, if the fellas kept her up all night, next Sunday morning if we had a meeting on Saturday, we have to go to church Sunday morning. She'd parade us all to church, and we'd have to sit there. Regardless, didn't nobody dispute the fact that she said, go to church.
You went to church. You did as you were told.
Yeah, did.
Clifford, comments on meetings at your house?
Well, I was young, but I used to sit in and try to hear all I could because these guys were kind of like where I wanted to be.
You weren't in at that time?
No. I was about, I was 4 or 5 years younger than most of the guys that were in there.
Okay.
And in those days, 4 or 5 years was a lot of years. When someone's 16 and someone's 20,
yeah.
There's a big gap. Now here we are sitting like it's common now. We're within 4 years, but we're all 75 or 80 years old. That make no difference. But the point being that I used to kind of want to sit in because I was curious. First of all, they had a very classy organization for young people. They always, everything they gave was on a high standard, and I kind of wanted to be a part of this. And then they had a lot of girls. These guys had more girls than they could deal with, and it was always flocking around the Webloes. So when they had an affair, they would always dress up in formal attire, and they handled everything was like flowers and boutonnieres and corsages. I mean, these guys really, they took care of business. And when they had a contest,
stayed broke.
Well, I know, but you had fun. I didn't know then. I just wanted to be a part of this because I just saw this as a great thing, you know.
Yeah, one of the things Edison insisted on when we decided to give our first prom, when we said we wanted to give a prom, he said, well, is it going to be formal? And we said, yes. And he said, well, that means you've got to have tails, patent leather shoes. And he started laying out everything. And here we were, 15, 16 years old, and we were talking about how we're going to get all of this.
We're going to get all
But we managed to get it. But
Everybody
the thing of
catch
it
up.
was, and we had a policy at that time, that if a person showed up at the door and they weren't dressed formally,
They had
we
to go.
turn them around.
That's
And
right.
they had to go back. The only problem we had was, at the first prom we gave at Kleinhans, I think 7 of the girls showed up and they had the same kind of gown on, and it was quite a stir in there that night. Those 2 pictures that you have there of the parties that we had those. One was at Clifford's house and one was at Bobby's house. Their mothers, our mothers at that time, they welcomed all of the brothers or the boys into the houses, and we were able to go there, and they would chaperone us more or less to see that everything went all right.
Okay, so you had lots of help.
Yeah.
Really had lots of help.
What's amazing as I look at those pictures, and it's almost common with all pictures that have any age, that the boys always had on shirts and ties and shoes.
That's right.
And the girls were equally well dressed. It's just amazing. I think a lot of that has to do with your environment, your kind of family that you were raised in. But you know, even in my days coming through Shiloh and all, you just didn't go out without a shirt and a tie and
Right.
shoes.
Right.
I mean, sneakers is what you wore to school for gym.
Yeah, for
But
gym.
and I think that's a difference. It's a difference
It's
in
a
the whole
big
era.
difference.
You know, yeah.
So guys, how long did the Webloes go on once you started? You know, once the
Well-
gentleman said, let's start, Jimmy.
Well, I think we broke up, we'd gotten up around 22, 23 years old, something like that. And what happened is each fellow was going his own way as an adult.
Yeah.
Well, they got married.
Got to start getting married. That's really what
Married.
knocked the group out.